Welcome back. We're going to be joined by Dwight Mitchell in this segment. We're having a little bit of trouble getting established with him, but he's there. He's working on it. We're going to talk about court cases that have to do with CPS. And just to underscore what is going on, this is something that has been operating under the radar, kind of like these pedophile networks. As a matter of fact, the two of them are often tied together. But it is a multi-billion-dollar bureaucratic industry that runs across this country. It's one of the things that Dwight Mitchell found out when he was snapped up in a particular case. And he responded to that by, first of all, he won his child back, but it was a very long ordeal, nearly a year, I think. And once he got his child back, he started to realize that this is a big problem, and he wanted to help other parents. And so we've got him now on the phone. Okay, good. Let's get Dwight Mitchell. And let me tell you where you can get information from Dwight, because he's got a wealth of information. FamilyPreservationFoundation.org. That's easy to remember. FamilyPreservationFoundation.org. And last time I talked to Dwight, he had just put together a series of videos for people to educate them about how they may get a knock on the door, and the vast majority of people haven't done anything wrong. They're eventually vindicated, but it takes a very long time. Children are abused in the process. It takes a very long time to even find out what you're charged with, because they don't tell you. And they ignore all the rules of due process, and that's exactly what they're going to do with these coming vaccine mandates. They're already talking about how they don't want to get caught up in due process. But joining us now is Dwight Mitchell. I'll also give you his social media. Facebook and Twitter is the initials of the organization, FPF.org on Facebook, and FPFIORG on Twitter. So that's the FamilyPreservationFoundation.org. Thank you for joining us, Dwight.
Thank you for having me, David. How are you today?
Doing good. Tell people, on that website, do you have those videos that were so helpful? We played some of those last time you were on.
That's correct. The videos are free. We put together the series last year, and a lot of people have gotten a lot of information that they were just not aware of. And so we've gotten a lot of feedback on that, and a lot of video hits and views on that. So it's free on the website.
And that's very important, because most parents, when they haven't done anything wrong, maybe it's some crank in the neighborhood who identified them, or it might be like I was talking about in Massachusetts, where they said, well, your kid didn't log into enough of these online classes, so we're going to send CPS here to investigate you. And most parents don't think that they've done anything wrong, and they don't realize that these people are fishing to take your kids away.
That's correct. What most people don't realize is that they'll receive a phone call, or when I say they, CPS will receive a phone call with an allegation. So CPS is actually coming to your door to try and ascertain if the allegations are true. So they'll come to your house, and they have no information at all outside of the phone call. What most parents don't realize is they should, not speak to CPS, be respectful and polite, but just say, listen, I'll schedule a time to meet with you, with my attorney, and we can move forward from there. But as it stands right now, my children are safe and healthy. Nothing is wrong. And you're not allowed to come into my house unless you have a warrant. If you would like to, you could step out on the front porch with CPS, but you're not obligated to talk to them. You just need to tell them that everything is fine in your household. And if they want any additional information, they need a warrant and a court order from a judge.
Yeah, that's right. And the public perception of this, because this really has been kept under the carpet by the mainstream media, the public perception is, well, we do need to protect children from abusive parents, and that is true. But it's a very, very small minority of parents that are even alleged to have committed physical or sexual abuse. A very, very small percentage of those, and most of them are not found guilty. But the vast majority of parents, there's nothing at all like that. And yet they still take the kids away. They put them into foster homes or the system. And during the time that the case is rolling through, the kids are physically or sexually abused.
Well, what's so interesting about that, when you said a very small percentage, there's only 4% nationally that are accused or have allegations of sexual assault, and only 12% have physical allegations. So 84% of the children that are taken by CPS are based on what child support called negligence. And what that means is literally anything we want.
Yeah, your kid didn't log into the online account, the online classes enough.
That's correct. Or you didn't get vaccinated, or your child was
That's
out
coming.
sick. I mean, people will call CPS for anything. One of our members was sitting on the front porch with a 1-year-old baby. Her daughter was riding up and down the street on a bicycle with a helmet. The neighbor didn't see the mother on the front porch, called CPS and said that the child was outside unsupervised without the parent. And this started a whole CPS investigation. When the parent was sitting right there on the front porch, the neighbor just didn't see the child.
Wow. I spent most of my childhood unsupervised. I was riding my bicycle all over the place. I had a long range of places where I could ride my bicycle unsupervised. We did all kinds of little rascals type of things. Talk to us about this court case that's before the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals.
Well,
that you just had before the 8th Circuit Court.
What's funny is that the court order from the Court of Appeals shows there is definitely something wrong in Minnesota. George Floyd just shows you that something is wrong in Minnesota. We gave the court a 141-page complaint with 24 claims. And out of 141 pages, we got back a 16-page opinion that didn't even address the claims that came up literally with 4 topics they spoke about. And the 4 topics they spoke about were all inaccurate, incorrect, based upon the complaint and the evidence we submitted. Wait,
let's back up a little bit here, Dwight, and tell the audience what was the nature of your complaint about the CPS system. There's multiple cases, right?
There's multiple cases. So we have the parental rights group. So we have 41 parents sign affidavits or declarations that they were being affected by CPS with statutes that were literally chilling their parental rights in order to rear their children. So we all know that CPS and the court system is not supposed to interfere with parents and their ability to raise children unless there is significant reason. So we had the 41 parents, and that's our parental rights group. And most of you know that it stopped CPS from legally kidnapping children. And it's a catchy phrase or a slogan because kidnapping in itself is illegal. You can't really legally kidnap a child, but that's what's actually going on because they're taking the children out of the home without due process based upon allegations, meaning CPS doesn't even have to prove the allegations are true to remove children from the home in Minnesota. So it's just purely based on allegation, and the judge gives them 60 days to try and prove the allegation. So your child is sitting in foster care where you don't know where. You may or may not get visitation based upon the allegations, and you have to wait 60 days to go to trial for CPS to try and prove the allegations. And if they don't, well, okay, here's your child back. Meanwhile, your child has been traumatized by being separated from you in foster care. So
that's right. You should have first of all a speedy trial. You should have due process. You should know what the charges against you are. All of those things are violated by that. And you talk about kidnapping. There were a couple of CPS workers. I forget the jurisdiction where that was. They were seen or photographed or on Facebook or social media wearing child kidnapper shirts. We're child kidnappers. And
I saw that the pink ones.
Yeah, exactly. They got fired, which is good.
Oh, did they?
Because, it's kind of bad PR for them to embrace that in a sarcastic way, right? But it's the reality of what they're doing when they don't give you due process. When they take your kids and then do the due process later, right? We need to red flag these guys, don't we?
And what's really interesting, what most parents don't even realize is that just based on these allegations, the social worker can put you on the state registry that said we've substantiated the allegations of abuse before trial. And you stay on this registry for 10 years. You can't get a job with dealing with children, the hospital, or anything of that nature, purely based on the social workers.
Hang on, Dwight. We got to take a break. We got a hard break coming up. We'll be right back. Dwight Mitchell, FamilyPreservationFoundation.org. Welcome back. We're talking to Dwight Mitchell. And as I look at the headlines, today we have headlines about North Korea. People are very up in arms about the fact that North Korea is confiscating dogs to eat. That's socialism for you. But people are upset about that. But they're not upset about the fact that we have children that are being confiscated in this country. We had a lot of talk about immigration and the Democrats focused on child separation. Now, at the border, there was some concern that the children had been turned over to child traffickers who were trying to determine parental involvement there, and they're traveling across international lines, and so there ought to be some scrutiny there, I believe. And nevertheless, the Democrat Party and the Republican Party have turned a blind eye to child separations in this country, most of which are against poor people, minorities in this country, because they don't have the legal resources to fight. But there aren't really any legal recourses for most of these. You know, we look at the danger of red flag legislation that's being pushed to take away people's guns. You know, we take the guns, we do the due process later, as the president said. That's a very dangerous idea. And yet they've been doing that with children through CPS for a very long time. Again, nobody talks about that. Take the child, do the due process later, months later. And in many cases, the children are traumatized. Some cases, they're abused. And so we're talking to Dwight Mitchell with the Family Preservation Foundation.org. They're trying to do something about this. They have a legal complaint about what is happening in Minnesota. And tell us a little bit about this. One of the things that is involved in this, Dwight, if I understand this correctly, goes back to a court case that the Supreme Court had in 2000 that revolved around strict scrutiny of CPS. Tell the audience a little bit about that and what's the purpose and the nature of your complaint there.
Well, in 2000, Supreme Court actually laid down the case law in the Traxel lawsuit that says that in order for you to separate a child from their parent, strict scrutiny had to be involved in that. You had to apply this case law if you were looking at any lawsuit dealing with the removal of a child from the family home, because it was sacred. And it's one of our most sacred institutions and the foundations of our country. So in our initial lawsuit, the district court did not use Traxel. They used a 1998 case law dealing with police officers called the County of Sacramento. And so we argued to the appellate court that they're using the wrong case law. This case law is inaccurate for the case that's being brought forward before the court, and we wanted the appellate court to overturn it and to allow us to have our trial.
And so that's the essence of it. They're using a police case that goes back to 1998, and you're saying, no, the thing that should be controlling this is the Supreme Court case, which was about CPS, and saying that you have to have strict scrutiny before you take the children away. And you're talking about being a lawsuit. This is a civil action, kind of like a civil asset forfeiture, right? Where you don't have any due process, they claim, because it's not a criminal action. They haven't charged you with a crime. They're just taking your kids, just like they take your property under civil asset, right?
That is correct. It's exactly the same analogy, David. So what's happening in our case is that we said, okay, we're going to go to the appellate court, the Eighth Circuit, and we were just confident the Eighth Circuit was going to overturn this. When I say they were hammering the defense, it was question after question after question. We were just so confident it was going to be overturned that when we received the opinion upholding the County of Sacramento case law, we were flabbergasted. We were shocked. So, we sat here and went and looked at other case law. So the Sixth Circuit just this year in March of 2020 had a CPS case, and they used Traxel as they were supposed to decide the case. And so right now we have what is known as a circuit split, and that's really where the Supreme Court comes into play. When you have district courts, so it's not just the Eighth Circuit, there's other courts that are doing this also. They're using this County of Sacramento with shock the conscience. And the reason they do that is that it makes it more difficult for a parent to win a lawsuit, because the judges come back and say, well, it didn't shock my conscience that they had your kid for 22 months and then they dismissed the case because they found nothing wrong. So
yeah. That's a very subjective standard. It shocked the conscience. It's kind of like saying, well, I don't know what pornography is, but I'll know it when I see it. Or, I don't know, like Cuomo. I don't know what food is, but I can tell you what it isn't, and you got to have this food with your drink. I mean, that we see all this kind of subjectivism there, but it really should be strict scrutiny. And as you point out, in 2000, the Supreme Court had a case that said that. So you got the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals that agrees with that, and at the same time, you've got your Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals, which disagrees with that, and you appealed it to them and said that we'd like to, because this is kind of like we see with General Flynn, I think. He had like a three-panel, three judges that listened to his case and said, no, this is wrong, I'm going to let you go. And then the judge appealed and said, we want the entire circuit court to sit and hear this en banc, right? All of them. And in that particular one in D.C., it's 11 judges. I don't know what you got in the 8th Circuit Court, but you requested that. They denied that. But now you've got a split between these two different circuit courts, so you think you've got a pretty good chance of taking this to the Supreme Court, right?
Well, that is one of the primary reasons that the Supreme Court takes cases, because the federal law is supposed to be applied equally across all of the states. So if the states are doing it incorrectly, that is when the Supreme Court steps in and says, okay, now we have to have a uniform standard that applies, and we're going to hear this and we're going to determine what the standard is. So we have a very good shot of Supreme Court taking our case and hearing our case. And so when we look at this, we talk about Minnesota and what goes on in Minnesota and how Minnesota is ground zero for this, Black Lives Matter and George Floyd movement. When I say something is clearly wrong in Minnesota, we sit here and say, you have intentionally decided not to follow the Supreme, Court jurisprudence on how to handle CPS cases. So they're doing this all over, but they're like, we're going to continue to take your children, and it doesn't shock our conscience that CPS is lying, fabricating evidence, and doing all these things to take your child. And 60 days later, they'll give you back your child, and they'll say, well, it was justified because we were, we thought it was in the best interest of the child to take your child and traumatize them for 60 days rather than substantiate evidence. So like if you're in New Jersey, they cannot take your child unless they can substantiate, the allegations. So that's what Minnesota should be doing, but Minnesota doesn't do that. They come in and take your child right away, the same night. And then they say, we have 60 days to prove the allegations. So that's one of the heinous things about the Minnesota law system. And that's one of the fundamental things that is so wrong with Minnesota and their entire legal system. It's like these liberals are just, saying we're going to do what we want to do, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so
and this is a big part of the educational part of this. Is why I think it's so important for people to look at these videos that you've got there at the familypreservationfoundation.org, because people just don't understand that we don't have a legal system and we don't have due process anymore, because they use these bureaucracies and they use rules, and they say because we got a rule and it's not a law, you don't get due process, you don't have a presumption of innocence, you don't get presented with the charges and all these other things that we expect, excessive punishment and so forth. None of this stuff applies. That happened with the war on drugs, and people don't. When Megyn Kelly was here at Infowars, I had an interview with her. She was talking to me about civil asset forfeiture. I mentioned civil asset forfeiture. She'd never heard of it. I mean, her eyes just kind of glazed over like a deer in the headlights. What's that? Right. And so people have never heard of civil asset forfeiture. They don't know what's going on with CPS. And that's the key thing. When people hear what has happened to you and to other people in your association, they are outraged, because it does shock the conscience of anybody that doesn't have their conscience seared with a hot iron.
One of the things I'd like to bring out to most parents is that I want them to do two things if they do nothing else. When CPS comes to your door, just literally don't talk to them. Tell them everything is fine. And two, if you have access to the internet, just please, go look at our instructional videos. And just the first 2 or 3, I have 35 key tips of what to do when dealing with child support, with CPS. And everyone needs to really look at these. They're free. I have PDF handouts. I have instructions on what to do. So there's a lot of information that I provide for free. And there's 12 units, and we're adding things constantly. I just added another video yesterday. I have 2 more. And so everything I do is based on state statutes and case law. So I tell everyone, if you're a public defender or anyone tells you anything, say, that's fine. Please provide me with the case law that substantiates what you're saying. And it doesn't hurt to question people. But,
it's all about education.
Keep your mouth shut.
That's right. It's all about education, folks. Having your kids red flagged, anybody that doesn't like you for any reason, that could just be a neighborhood crank, or it could be somebody who is a family member who doesn't like you, or ex-spouse or something like that. It's very, very dangerous when you don't have due process. That's why it's important. Look at familypreservationfoundation.org.
Decoding the mainstream propaganda. It's the David Knight Show.
I've talked to the EMS and I've talked to medical doctors, and what makes you nauseated, it's not just the smell of the piss. What we call the smell of bum piss that has that sweet, nauseating smell.
Yeah, I wouldn't say sweet.
Well, it does. It has a sweet stench. It makes me want to throw up like rotten meat. It is the crap of dust mites.
Have you noticed the stench of bum piss in your leftist-run neighborhoods? The crap of dust mites in bum piss is a real thing, and Infowars store has the solution. Infowars has created the most powerful herbal lung cleanse and respiratory support product on the market. With over 1,000 types of mold and mildew, toxic chemicals, and yes, dust mites. Our Lung Cleanse Plus, made with organic and wild cultivated herbs, is just what you need to survive the unprecedented surge of bum piss and other toxic substances in liberal leftist cities everywhere. Order the Infowars Life Lung Cleanse Plus supplement today at InfowarsStore.com.